what's going on with you all? Thank you for tapping in with me again today. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Cleveland. So welcome to the Fish Corner, everybody. If you are new to the channel, please do a few things before this video gets started. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and lastly, hit the like button for me one time. Now let's get into the video. So this video is about fish that need a warning label. We need to know that these fish could possibly change our lives. Now, what does that mean? That might sound like something positive. On the other hand, it could sound like something terrible. I don't know. I'm going to let you decide on what that means to you. But I think that this video is definitely needed. So many of us go to the fish store. We see a fish that we like. And best case scenario, we know exactly everything about the fish. We know where they originate from. We know the species. We know how big they get. We know the diet. We know what water parameters they need. All of that. Ideally, that's the way it should go, right? But that's not always the case. That's not always the case. Sometimes we'll go to the store and we see a fish that we like and we rely on an associate. We'll ask them questions. We'll ask them, what kind of fish is it? What kind of tank do I need? What size tank do I need? What do they eat? How big did it get? All of these different things. We'll ask them. Other times, we'll look online. We'll see, and we'll ask the same questions. We'll type that into Google. And we'll, based on that feedback, we'll decide whether or not we're going to purchase that fish. So the first fish that I do want to mention is a fish that by far is one of the easily mistaken fish that you could get. And it is the pacu. The pacu fish looks just like a red belly piranha. But imagine that red belly piranha on steroids. That means that it's 10, 20 times the size of a red belly piranha at full size. Fish can get 3.5 feet in length, upwards to 88 pounds. I mean, that's a massive, massive fish. It's like a pit bull in your aquarium. Extremely large. Now, these fish are originated in South America, Brazil, Guyana, a lot of different places where they are thriving in the rivers and these waterways, and they are huge. So when you go to the store and you're looking up information on these pacu fish, and you're hoping that they are legitimate and that they're telling you the truth so you could actually buy the fish. So when you look online and you see a pacu fish and you looking up, let's just say the origin of it. Like I said, the Amazon, Orinoco rivers, Guianas, basically, like I said, South America. When you type in their size, it's going to tell you that they could get 3 feet, 3.5 feet, weighing up to 88 pounds. When you type in tank size, it's going to tell you that ideally at least 250 gallons. That's ridiculous. You could surely keep a pacu in a 250-gallon aquarium for a little bit of time, but when we're talking about a fish that gets 88 pounds, 3.5 foot in size, that's not going to work long term. And from what I've seen, they will easily get much larger than the aquarium that they're in. Meaning that sometimes you might think that if I put a fish in a certain size aquarium, it might stunt the growth. Well, that's not always the case. And pacu will definitely break that thinking process. They will get 37 inches inside of a 125-gallon aquarium, which is only 6 feet long. Hence the example that I'm showing you right now. They also say that a 400-gallon tank is recommended for a pacu fish. Again, not big enough. Not big enough. This 1,300-gallon aquarium behind me probably could house a pacu, maybe one or two. But what I want to go bigger, I think being that they are not slow swimmers, they are fast swimmers, they like a lot of space, I would think essentially probably something bigger than that. Ohio Fish Rescue, they have some big, really large pacu in a 3,000 gallon, and they make a 3,000 gallon look small. So be aware when you are selecting these fish. Be aware when you are looking at this information online, because it will definitely, or can definitely, railroad you, and you'll end up with something that will potentially be a problem later on. The next fish that I have to mention is the red-tailed catfish. Now, these fish are beautiful from the size of 2 inches to the size of 20 inches and up. They are beautiful through and through. I love the way these fish look. I wish I could house one, but they get very, very large. But again, unless you have a source that you go to see how big these fish are going to get, you just don't know. So you might do a quick search online, and we type it in. You might type in the red-tailed catfish. You might want to know where they originate from. Just like the pacu, they are native to the Amazon, the Orinoco, South America, Venezuela, Guyana, Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, Brazil. So they are in a lot of different places, right? So you might be like, okay, that's cool. So we're going to look up the size of them. So like I said, these fish are massive. They could get anywhere between 4 foot to 6 foot, 180 pounds. That's crazy, right? That's bigger than most people, right? I just mentioned the size of them, right? It says no smaller than a 700 or 800 gallon. Okay, I could agree with that. You could get by with having them in a 700 or 800 gallon for a short period of time, maybe even a couple of years. But eventually, you're going to need something like, I would say 20,000 gallons, at least 20,000 gallons. I mean, we've seen them at predatory fins, and they had them inside of a 12,000 gallon, and they still look quite large in that 12,000 gallon. Now, when we look at them on Ohio Fish Rescue Channel, they have them in a 58,000 gallon, and they look small in there. So anywhere between 12 to 56, or between 12 to 58, is probably the best area. That's the sweet spot. That's the sweet spot. Anything under that, and you may find yourself upgrading again and upgrading again. So basically, they almost need like a little lake, right? But that's just how misleading this is. And then under that, a tank size of at least 250 to 3,000 gallons is the absolute minimum. Yeah, if the person want to definitely upgrade from that and still have other fish to go into that 250 to 300 gallon, you'll be okay. But if that's not the case, the 250 to 300 gallon is not going to suffice very long for a red-tailed catfish. I mean, they grow extremely fast and get extremely large. So just be aware when you see these cute little red-tailed catfish in the pet store, you know what I'm saying? Like, unless you know that eventually you're going to build them something that's over 10,000 gallons, you might not want to do it. You might not want to do it. Might want to find a nice alternative. Not trying to be the bearer of bad news. Just trying to give it to you real and uncut, just so you'll have a better chance of getting something that you could keep long term. I mean, we love to keep our fish long term, right? The next one on the list, we are going to talk about the bumblebee grouper. Now, some people keep them in freshwater, believe it or not. Some people keep them in saltwater. I don't know a bunch about the bumblebee grouper, but I do know it is the largest grouper. Some of y'all might have thought that the Goliath grouper is the largest grouper. The bumblebee grouper is also called the giant grouper. It will get about 80 pounds more than the Goliath grouper. The Goliath grouper can get up to 800 pounds. The giant grouper, also known as the bumblebee grouper, could get to 880 pounds. It could reach 9.8 feet in length. Now, this will take over some decades of time. I mean, they could live 50 to 100 years. Did you catch that? You got to have a plan in action to where you're going to send this fish. If you are able to successfully keep this fish for 30, 40, 50 years, when you pass on, it's going to end up being in your wheel. That is a lifelong commitment when we're talking about the bumblebee grouper. And a lot of the times, I guarantee people are not thinking about it that way. They're thinking that it's like a red devil, might last 10, 15 years. They're thinking of it like any other fish. This is not any other fish. This is a prehistoric fish. Not literally prehistoric, but I mean, it could live a century. That is absolutely insane. You don't even buy, when you get a house, your house loan is only 30 years. So that's like buying 3 houses in your life, going 30 years each time, consecutive. That's one heck of a commitment. So you look at these beautiful black and yellow bumblebee groupers, and also remember, they don't stay black and yellow. I don't know if you all know that. They don't stay black and yellow. Those spots turn light, and they look more like a dark and lighter color gray or dark and light white. You know what I mean? Dark and white. But not even like a black and white. It's just check out the video. That is what the giant grouper looks like. The bumblebee grouper looks like when it starts getting to maturity and get to that 6 foot mark. It looks totally different. But when you look online, you might say, hey, I want a bumblebee grouper, right? And let's just say, let's look at the tank size for a bumblebee grouper. Let's see what they recommend. The bumblebee grouper requires a very large tank, ideally 100 gallons or more. Now, we're clearly talking about a smaller bumblebee grouper, but again, the size that this fish gets to, almost 1,000-pound fish, you're going to need something like a real lagoon. You're going to need something that's like, again, the 58,000 gallons, the 60,000 gallon, the 70,000 gallon, in order for you to provide a good, healthy, happy environment for that fish. Public aquariums are known to be able to provide those kind of conditions, but in the fish hobby, it's not always realistic to be able to replicate what a fish of that size needs. I mean, think about the filtration that you're going to need for that. And is it going to be the only fish inside of that lagoon, lake, or pond, or whatever the case may be? You got to make sure you put things in there that can be eaten, that increase the bioload. I mean, do you really want to feed a fish that gets to 800 pounds, 9.5 feet, almost 10 feet in length? Now, I don't want to, again, I'm not trying to discourage. If you already have one, I hope you know all these things. I hope you got a plan in action to when it does get too big for you that you could send it off to the correct location. But like I said, I'm kind of like the person that likes to always be able to keep what they buy. I really hate having to rehome because I didn't do enough research in the beginning before I bought it. And we still do it. I'm not putting anybody down. I mean, heck, I got a tiger shovel-nosed catfish that I do want to rehome because, although it can go in the 1,300 gallon, it's just not compatible with the fish that are smaller in that 1,300 gallon. And that's the only 1,000 gallon plus aquarium that I do have. If I had a second one, I would throw them in there. You know what I mean? So moving forward, I'm just not making those decisions, right? But so when you look online, it could easily mislead you and misguide you. Even when you look at another site and they just say, hey, you need a 300 gallon to a 500 gallon or more to house this fish, they should also put in that verbiage how long you have to keep it in that 300 to 500 gallon aquarium. I mean, because if it just starts growing really rapidly, you're going to be upgrading really fast. I mean, and a 500 gallon aquarium is not only expensive, but it is a very large aquarium. I mean, sometimes it takes time for people to be able to get the money together to buy a 300 gallon or a 500 gallon. I don't even have a 500 gallon glass or acrylic aquarium. I mean, they hit the pockets, y'all. So just keep all of that in mind. And then last on the list, this is by far one of my favorite fish. I know I will never be able to own one. And I know a lot of people own them. And I'm not saying nothing about anybody that does have them. Because I know that you guys have learned how big they get and you have plans in motion. So you are able to successfully keep them long term. And that's the arapaima. Now the arapaima is a very large fish. It could get up to 10 foot in length. You're going to need a massive, massive water source, pond, lake, anything like that. You're going to need something extremely large to house them. And the people that I see that have done it the best is, again, Ohio Fish Rescue. And they have a 58,000 gallon pool that they turned into a pond for their larger fish. I haven't seen anybody do it on that level. They had Brutus in there. Brutus was over 6 foot in length, a big heavy fish. And Brutus looked small in there. That's how you want it to look. You want your fish to look small so they could thrive, they could get that enrichment, and they could be happy, right? So let's see what kind of information do they have online for the arapaima. The arapaima, 200 gallons for fish up to 30 inches. Some sources recommend a minimum of 1,000 gallons per arapaima. I can tell you right now, a 1,000 gallon aquarium is not going to work for arapaima long term. Now, again, we're just trying to look at it as what are we going to need to keep that fish for its life, right? That's what we look at when we decide to buy a fish. We're not looking at it like, what could we buy for the time being? We look at it, what can we buy and actually keep for the duration of its life? That's what's most important, because it's not always easy to rehome these extra large fish. You know, that's almost like a death sentence, right? That's why people, or some people, they just release them into the wild, which is devastating to the wildlife out there. You know what I mean? You don't know what kind of pathogens that fish have, and then you release it into the wild. It could be disastrous to the waterways and things like that. So I don't ever recommend that you release a fish from your captivity or from your aquarium back into the wild. Just don't do that. That's not recommended at all, and that's the reason why Fish and Wildlife put all these restrictions on us fish keepers. You know what I mean? So the best way to prevent something like that from happening is by knowing what you're buying and making sure that you are able to house that fish for the duration of its life. There's nothing wrong with starting off with a starter aquarium and growing the aquarium size with the fish. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's also nothing wrong with having the aquarium already in place that you know that that fish could stay in for the rest of its life. There's nothing wrong with that either. But getting a fish, allowing it to just get too large, and then you're trying to figure out where to put it, is definitely something wrong with that. That's why Ohio Fish Rescue are in business now, and that's why they travel all through the U.S. rescuing fish. You know what I mean? But I'm in California. I don't have an OFR right next to me, so you know, if I did, I probably would say, hey, come get this tiger shovel nose, because I have done the same thing. You know what I mean? But again, just make sure that you are learning from everyone and you're making sure that you are aware of what you're getting, and that's what you actually want to sign up for. So the fish, let's see the max size of this fish. This fish could get 10 foot in length and weigh over 440 pounds. It's like two of me. That is extremely, extremely large. So just keep that in mind. Just put that in your head. Just say, okay, I'm going to get me this fish. It's going to eventually get 10 foot in length. What will I do with a fish that gets 10 foot in length? What size aquarium do I need to have for a fish that gets 10 foot in length? And if you plan for that, you'll be okay. Just plan for that. Don't plan for maybe it won't get that big. Don't look at it like that because you just never know. Plan for that and you'll be straight. And do the same thing with each of the fish that I've mentioned on this quick, short list. We'll do this again because there's some other ones. There's a lot. There's a lot of life-changing fish that are out there. And it could be for the better. And sadly, it could be for the worse. For you and the fish. You know what I mean? Our responsibility is to make sure that it's for the better for us and the fish because we knew what we're getting ourselves into. We knew how to plan ahead. We knew what we were signing up for. And yeah, I just hope that this video just enlightened some of us. You know what I mean? It just allow you to understand that some of these fish do get extremely large and that when I purchase this fish or when we purchase these fish, we know what we're signing up for. But with that being said, y'all, I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that you learned something. I hope that you were inspired by something. Please do a few things before you go. I would love for you to hit that subscribe button. I would love for you to hit that notification bell. And everyone, besides having a great day, if you like the video, like the video. Catch you on the next one. Peace.